Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Uh, Hello, we're so happy to have so many of you with us here this morning. My name is Natalie Baumstad, and thank you for joining us today for a Connecting for Wellbeing with Wello, a video series where we talk about all things community, connection, and well-being. And for our webinar today, we want to let you all know that we are going to be welcoming your questions as we kind of go along through the webinar. So if you do have questions as we go along, please feel free to type those into the chat function, which should be at the lower right-hand corner of your screen here today. And we will try to get to as many of those questions as we can as we move along. So today we have a very special topic about how to be mindful with our time. And recent events have really upended where and how we spend our time. And our guest today, I'm really excited to introduce you to. Our guest today is Torres. And I actually met Corey a few months ago when a mutual friend of ours suggested that we meet. And after about 2 hours of chatting over coffee, I have to say it was certainly time well spent for me. So I hope that you feel that as well today. So to help us navigate through this topic of being mindful about our time, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Corey Torres, who is a community advocate and well-being life coach. So Corey, thank you for joining us here today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a blessing to be here with you guys this morning.
All right, wonderful, thank you. So just to start out, part of well-being is asking people how they are doing. So how are you doing today, Corey?
I'm pretty peaceful. One of the things that I've been practicing for the past 5 years now is just waking up and saying thank you, just to initiate that response that I want to get from the universe. I put it out to receive it. So in order to receive, peaceful and uplifting vibes, you need to find ways to live it and practice it yourself. So I feel really peaceful right now for that reason.
Great, thank you. And it is a good thing to continually to be thankful each and every day for the blessings that we do have in our lives. So thank you for bringing that up. So as we dive into being mindful about our time, which is our topic today, how do you really define being mindful about your time? Kind of set the stage for us, Corey, around that.
Yeah, how I define that is finding ways to check in with yourself. I think a lot of the times when you think of time as this one big thing, it's overwhelming because so many things fall up under that category. When you think of job, when you think of family, when you think of extracurricular activities, and things that you genuinely love doing, it all wraps up into this thing that we call time. So it's really important to check in with yourself and ask those proactive questions like, how are you doing right now? What do you need in this moment to win the second half of the day? What do you need in this moment to feel empowered to finish this assignment? What do you need in this moment to feel empowered to go in the house and be an uplifting person for your family, for your kids, for your wife, for your spouse? It's truly all about just checking in with yourself. And a lot of the times when you do that, it brings up things that can sometimes be uncomfortable because you put it off with being busy during the day with your time.
Yeah, that's great. And so for some of us, time and emotion are really tied together. So, when you're thinking about kind of being mindful about your time, how do you account for some of that emotion that is oftentimes tied into our time?
I think it goes back to, what you define your purpose to be, what you define your passion to be, and what drives your spirit. Because when you think of time and the effort and the energy that goes into what a day looks like, if you are one who is not certain and clear about your personal mission statement in terms of what drives you, what motivates you to do the things you do, then that emotional piece would be very, very difficult for you to grasp while you're dealing with your time. So it's very important to go back to the drawing board and revise. And if you haven't created one already, I encourage everyone on this call to start defining what your mission statement is, your personal mission statement. So when you have moments of distress and moments of uncomfort and uncertainty, as it's so prevalent right now with everything going on, you have something to go back to resort to. I like to call it my home base. You know, my personal mission statement is my home base. It keeps me centered so that during moments where I feel uncentered, I quickly can remind myself of my purpose, my passion, and my why.
Mhm. Absolutely. Those are really great. So when you talk about defining kind of those passion and those purpose pieces, is that something that you physically write down, or would you suggest that, people actually write those down and spend some time thinking about what drives them, so that when they start to think about time and being mindful with that time that they have, that they are dedicating that time and that's in alignment with their purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I like to think of, I love analogies. So I think of writing things down as a way to unpack. We're constantly evolving. We're constantly growing. So that means our spirit is constantly traveling, right? Like we're constantly experiencing new things, meeting new people, traveling, and so on. So it's important to get in the habit of writing things down, not just something like a mission statement, but even things that you are experiencing that could potentially be the next thing that you need to tap into that next level. But if you aren't finding ways to interact with what's going on in here and in here, then you hold on to everything. So again, going back to the beginning, when I say this idea of time, it's the same idea. When you look at it all at once, it's hard to break it down when you're not taking the time to be mindful and unpacking what's on your spirit. So the analogy I love to use with that is unpack that sack that you travel with so that you can see what you have in there that's valuable, and you can see what's not valuable, and you can find ways to get rid of those things and utilize the things that you feel are valuable so that you can continue traveling and moving with a purpose.
Mhm. That's perfect. And I think that kind of leads us right into kind of another question that we have here today. And so could you kind of explain for us, Corey, some strategies for delineating time in what we are kind of in now, which is a little bit of a shapeless time period, right? Because we had these past structures that really kind of gave us where we were going to go, what we were going to do, and with those gone or different, how do we really? What are some strategies for dealing with that?
One of the strategies is like I said earlier, is checking in with yourself. I think those, if you can break your day up into, segments, like in the morning, you're going to do A and B, which is sit down, have coffee, and just think of what you're grateful for, so that you can start to build some sense of structure, because structure looks a lot different right now. So you got to find ways to be mindful about your activity, with the emotional pressure that comes with everything that's happening right now. For example, I had a moment the other day where I woke up and I questioned my ability to get up and be productive for the day. And I think part of that came from just the emotional pressure that's happening right now with everything that's going on. And I quickly had to remind myself, I'm awake right now. I'm breathing right now. That's something to be grateful for, and that's a reason for me to get up and do something. So it's not hard. It's just simply asking yourself those questions, remaining calm, and thinking before you act, so that you're able to check yourself during those moments, because structure looks a lot different right now. So you have to find a way to revise, and restructure your thoughts, restructure what your day looks like.
So, do you have any examples to share with folks here today on really how to manage and account for what potentially may be some quote unquote extra time or just new time? So, I think about, for many of us, if we have the privilege of being able to work from home right now, we may not have that commute time. anymore. So we have like some snippets of quote unquote new time in the day. For others, it may be managing time in a different way if you know you have your children at home
Yeah.
right now, or you're an essential worker and you are being asked to work more hours. You know, what are some ways, or do you have any suggestions on how to really manage or account for that?
I think you know, one of the things people always ask for is extra time. You know, I wish I had time to do this. I wish I had time to do that. So now is the time to process what those things are. You know, for me, I wish I had more time to read. I wish I had more time to write. I wish I had more time to build programming for my coaching. Those are all things that I always wish I had more time for when I was working three jobs at once and, you know, having very little time for myself. So I think it's going back to the drawing board and writing those things down. When you think of additional time and you've wished for it, what are some of those things that you wish for that you could be doing with extra time? And that will give you some sense of direction so that you can start to structure and lay out what your day looks like. For example, you know, you need to ask yourself, what do you do when you first wake up in the morning? What does that first hour look like? If it's, I wake up and I just drag my feet, mope around the house, then that's something that you can restructure. You know, that's extra time that you have that you're making the choice to not utilize productively, right? Proactively, I mean, sorry. So that's a moment for you to get real with yourself, be honest with yourself, and say, I have this extra time. I wished for it at one point. Now I have it. What can I do with it? So it's really a matter of taking responsibility and being okay with uncertainty, being okay with uncomfort. Because I wish that I can tell all 17 of you on this call right now that it's not going to that is not going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be easy. I wish I could say that, but it's not. So it's really just a matter of you being proactive and accepting the uncomfort and the uncertainty, yet have the mindful piece that you're going to take this, revise it, recycle it, and use it for something that's beneficial for your time.
Absolutely. That's really great. I think that first hour piece in the morning is really something that resonates with me personally, because I feel like there are different ways that I use that time, and sometimes I use it very proactively, and I feel like it sets your day up for success.
Absolutely.
And there are days where I may not use it as proactively, and it's very apparent. I think it just kind of continues to go throughout your day, you know, and kind of affecting that and how your day unfolds.
Yeah, another thing quick I wanted to add is the importance of consistency. Um, as a health and well-being advocate, life coach, one of the things that I really push for is taking care of your health. And you know, one thing that I really want to encourage is people to be mindful of how they're eating, you know, their level of activity, and what they're pouring into in terms of what they're reading, what they're listening to. All of those things have power to influence you and your decision making. So if there's something about your level of urgency around this idea of time to take this thing and restructure it and revise it, if that energy isn't there, then another thing that I encourage you to do is to go back to the drawing board and ask yourself, what is my circle of influence, right? And then aside from that, you can make another circle and ask yourself, what does my circle of concern look like? What is my circle of difficulty look like? You know, start unpacking those things, and that will help you to understand where you are spiritually and where you are mentally, so that you at least know that you have something there to start rebuilding what this new layer of structure looks like for you.
Perfect. So we have one question, Corey, and I think that this kind of builds upon what you were just saying. Can you kind of explain a little bit more about that circle of uncertainty and kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So what thinking of personal like mind blocks, when it's growth mindset, for example, when you think of doing something, right? Like a task that's difficult for you, what are you telling yourself? I can do this or I can't do that. I can do this will sit in that circle of influence because there's something influencing you to push you to do it versus that circle of concern, circle of difficulty. There's something in you saying, I can't do this. I don't have any strategies to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm not motivated to do this. So it's a matter of you being able to list, like, I like to call it your emotional bank. Are you in are you in the negative or are you in the positive? And if what that negative list looks like is outweighing what that positive list looks like, then you need to go back and revise and start getting rid of some of those things and empower yourself to be more on the other side that is influencing you, that's there to empower you and motivate you to do the things that you need to do.
Thank you. If there are one more question here. How can we help our children embrace kind of mindfulness and this being mindful of time during this challenging time?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say I love children. I think we need to give them more credit in terms of their ability to grasp what's happening. So I think I was just actually having a conversation with one of my life coaching clients the other day, and I gave him the strategy to check in with his children, to empower his children, to have a voice in what's happening right now. I think in terms of parents, and I'm not a parent myself, but giving yourself some breathing room to be lenient about some things that you might have in the past when everything was normal, got upset about or frustrated about. Like if they're outside digging a hole in the yard, let them dig a hole in the yard. Like they're all working together, they're happy, they're not doing any harm. Just let it be, right? So checking in with your kids, asking them, how are you doing? How do you feel about this? Educate them on what's happening. Don't be afraid to have those courageous conversations with your kiddos. Obviously, if they're younger and they can't quite understand what you're saying, then just be proactive and find different strategies that will help uplift them too. Do some breathing exercises with them, color with them, go outside and play with them, take them for a walk. There's so many different things that you can do, but thinking of that proactive piece, finding ways to include them in on what's going on right now.
And I know we've been hearing a lot from parents who may be home with their children right now and trying to continue to have education central to some of the time that they spend together. One of the questions and kind of comments that we get is, well, the school day is usually 8 hours long. What if my kids get done with all of their work in 2 hours, right? Yeah. What do I do with them then? Not what do I do with them, but how do we fill that time? Right? And how can we still ensure that they're learning, that it is productive time? But I want to kind of get your feedback on that, because I think to some degree we think that all of this time needs to be productive and needs to look a certain way when, maybe this is the time to say, well, what other things can we be teaching our children right now? Kind of outside the classroom. So have you, I know that you've worked with schools and with kids in that capacity before. What are some things that you would say to
that? I think giving yourself the permission to not have to feel like you always need to be doing something productive is my answer to that. That's one of the biggest things that I've practiced as of this year is I've always been this driven person and always trying to find ways to fill my time with things that are super productive and high strung, because that's just the type of energy that I have. But I think my answer to that would just to be also set time aside to decompress and allow things to just be and not always feel like you need to have something in place or be doing something that's informative or educational. You guys can go for a walk and just explore nature, or play a board game, or watch silly videos and laugh together, like simple things. I know that with that 8 hour school time, parents want to feel the need to drive all that time and push everything, but you have to think about it like this. A lot of that information, parents are not familiar with, so they're struggling with even teaching certain skills to the kids from what school is pushing. So fill time with having fun and enjoying yourself as well. That's very important. You need to sit back and decompress and give your spirit the permission to just relax.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, the permission to just be, right? And to explore some of the things, you've mentioned before, when we're go, go, go all the time, kind of in I would say the past world, right? A lot of us are going, 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 and we wish we had time to just sit down, maybe have a family dinner, right?
Yeah.
Or we want to be able to play a board game or read this book. So this is really a great opportunity, and kind of giving us ourselves permission to kind of surrender to that, and to do those things now.
Yeah, another thing that I wanted to mention is I talk of this strategy called mindfulness momentum, and this idea of creating this momentum around your spirit, so that in times of distress, in times of uncomfort, your spirit is going to be the thing that will uplift you. We have these voices in our head. Our subconscious lives in that circle of difficulty that says things to you like, don't do it right now, like now is not the time, you don't have enough time, you can't do that, you're not smart enough to do that. And then you have that other piece of the things that you enjoy doing, and those are the things that you need to pour into and check in, again, going back to the beginning, checking in with yourself, asking yourself how you're doing. So when you take breaks throughout the day, be mindful, have a purpose for those breaks. Do not take work with you during a break. I like to think of work as work and personal as personal. People always say it, yet they find ways to piece it all together. And again, taking it back to this one big thing of time, now you have work and personal working together, and now you can't separate that. So then you're living in the circle of difficulty because you don't know how to separate your time and be mindful about what it is that you're doing.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So are there any other, tips or things that you would like to share about how, you personally, Corey, are taking care of your health and well-being, today, yesterday, going forward? Any things that you're doing that you want to share?
Yeah, I I love plugging into podcasts and doing a ton of reflecting. Actually, I just signed up Lewis Howes. He's a speaker, former athlete. Um, I just signed up for his mastery class for coaching, and how to be productive and proactive with this time, thinking of ways to build something like a side hustle that you enjoy doing. If you're an artist, now is the time for you to explore what that may look like for you. If you enjoy reading, now is the time to go buy a few extra books. Things that you enjoy doing that you may not necessarily had the time to do in the past. I think just going back to that and finding ways to uplift your spirit is important right now. So for me, it's that, and I love cycling. So I get up in the morning every morning, and I plug into podcasts, put my headphones on, and I cycle for 30 minutes to an hour, and that's how I start my day every day. It's been that way since the start of the year, and it's ongoing because it allows me to have some sense of structure. It allows me to feel like the first thing I do when I wake up is take care of myself and make sure that I'm in a position to feel empowered to empower other people, because I'm so connected to other people. So if you're a husband, or if you're a wife, father or mother, whatever, allow yourself that time in the morning. It doesn't take much to say, hey, how are you doing right now? What are you feeling right now? And if you are feeling uncertain and you're feeling uncomfortable, start to think of some proactive strategies, like what can I listen to? What can I read that can help empower me? Even if you don't believe what the people are saying, if you can start to build some type of momentum, right? That mindfulness momentum, you will drive yourself to a place to believe it at some point, but you have to practice consistency. If you wake up every day and you tell yourself, I can't do this, I don't want to do this, then you're going to continue to build that negative mindfulness momentum versus having something positive that's pushing you, that's driving you, that's forcing you to believe it at some point. So just be super mindful of the things that you plug into, and all will be well. I can assure you that, but you have to do the work and be willing to step out and be uncomfortable and give yourself permission to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yep, great. I think great words of wisdom there. So Corey, just to end today, who or what is inspiring you today?
Um, I'm inspired by my great aunt every day. My great aunt adopted me when I was a newborn baby, and she's always been a light for me. Passed away when I was 16, and I'm now 31. So just thinking of all of the things that she has taught me, just this genuine desire to love people and create happiness and wellness around people. She put so much of that into my spirit as a kid, and it's something that I hold very, very close to my heart every day. So I'm just super grateful for that. Any moment that I'm breathing, I remind myself of that. So it keeps me moving forward.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. I think it really speaks to the power that we have to create, really meaningful relationships with one another, and what those relationships can really do immediately, and then also long term, how those can be really impactful moments.
Yeah. Is it okay if I shared my email address with some of the participants on here?
Absolutely. Yep.
So if you guys want to write my email down, is love life coaching, everything lowercase, LOVE, life coaching as is, 365@gmail.com.
All right.
So
And I just put it into the chat for you again.
Oh, great. I just wanted to share that with you all. I can't see who's all on at the moment, but in case anyone has any additional questions or they would like to reach out to me, inquire about coaching, inquire about different strategies that you may need to feel uplifted and empowered during this time, I'd be more than happy to even offer a 15 to 30-minute free consultation for you guys over the phone, to have a conversation. So just wanted to put that out there.
Right. Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us here today, Corey. We really appreciate all your insight and your time with us here today. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
And just to close today, recently a colleague of mine reminded me that many of us right now are really in a sense of mourning about some of the things that may be different, or some of the things that we're missing out on, but trying to kind of shift our way of thinking about things, and instead of thinking about the things that we may be losing right now, what are things that we may be able to do that are better than before, right? And so if you are noticing that there's a difference in the way you spend your time, and maybe how you're prioritizing things in life, because maybe we're taking some of those extra steps we talked about today to really kind of refine that passion and that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
How can we use some of that time that we have now to focus on what could be, right? What can each of us do today, or start doing to kind of get us down that path of creating something that may be even better than before. So really looking at this as also an area of opportunity for us moving forward in each of our lives.
Absolutely. That was beautifully said.
So with that, we really thank you all for joining us here today for this Connecting for Wellbeing with Wello. If you have any suggestions on topics or people that you would like to hear from next, feel free to drop us a note at hello@wello.org. And this video will be posted as well on our website, as well as social media, so you can reference it for future use. So with that, thank you again, Corey, and thank you all for joining us here today. And be well, everyone.
Yeah.
Take care.